we're probably by now all familiar with the term political correctness. It's the idea that certain traditions and certain bits of history and attitudes need a facelift, need to be updated, that they perpetrate inequality or destructive stereotypes, and they need to be amended and revised. And that in itself is a lovely idea, but unfortunately, in the wrong hands, politically correct thinking, excessive politically correct thinking, can behave like an ideological autoimmune disorder, and that kind of restrictive thinking can actually obliterate the very diversity that it purports to protect and defend. And that's what I've seen all too much of. I was told with certain board games that we were not, the children, it was to be introduced to the children without having a winner to the game, that when the first game piece crossed the finish line, there isn't a single winner, we all win. I tried to do as I was instructed, but the children were only confused by this and weren't having it. A moment later, they were back to boasting who was going to win and looking for there to be a winner. They couldn't understand the point of playing a game that had no winners, and neither could I. So I found it really impossible to do what was asked of me. That's what I mean by I don't like being asked to be untruthful in the classroom. I don't like it when politically correct demands me to be, when politically correct instructions require that I be untruthful. I think that politically correct thinking is it's reactionary. You know, there are problematic stereotypes that have been handed down to us, and we have a notorious melting pot here in America, and that's a beautiful thing, but it does raise complex issues. And what my problem with politically correct thinking is it imposes simple answers over complex situations. And I think that we lose something by oversimplifying. I think it's fine to be to examine our traditions and our language and to update it, but if we are careless and too oversweeping in our methods of addressing, as I say, some of these destructive historic expressions and stereotypes, then we're going to miss out on the accuracy of history and some truths, because I want to be able to freely acknowledge differences that we know exist. And I think it's destructive not to, that we do have gender differences. There are men and women and boys and girls. There are, and we do have different cultures, and they bring different celebrations and different qualities to our society. And I think that's something to be celebrated and encouraged. Children in preschool aren't really set up to process complex ideas like political inequality and inequality between the genders. They're learning to be away from their home in groups for the first time. They're learning to accept an authority figure other than who's at home. And I think if the relationships are warm and spontaneous and genuine, I think all of these, I think things will fall into place. So I would say just to keep it simple in preschool.